so crazy. And Utah wasn't ready for this. This is the moment. I'm going to show you the exact moment that Utah lost the room. They lost the plot.
As far as I'm concerned, Erika Kirk and the Turning Point USA team completely fumbled things during this trial. They actually presented what critics describe as an edited video in court, and now people are saying the case involving Charlie Kirk is starting to fall apart. The state's lead investigator just admitted something that caught a lot of people off guard, and many believe Utah wasn't ready for what happened next. This was the moment that, according to critics, the prosecution lost the room. Their version of the crime scene is now facing serious questions, and people are asking if the timeline really makes sense anymore. Instead of presenting the full, unedited surveillance footage from Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was that day, the Utah State Attorney's Office presented what critics describe as a carefully edited compilation video.
Do you have a version of this video that does not have alterations?
We don't, not right now, not today.
Rather than showing the complete recordings, the court was shown a shortened highlight reel, and that decision immediately sparked debate about how the evidence was being presented. The video included dramatic zooms, highlighted sections, and bright red circles that appeared to direct the court's attention to specific moments. Critics argued the presentation seemed designed to emphasize a particular interpretation instead of simply showing the footage as it was. The defense responded that the state, as the government, should be presenting original evidence rather than an edited montage. For a moment, the judge appeared to agree and decided the compilation would not be accepted because of concerns about its authenticity.
I don't recall. It was not. My recollection is that that was accounted for.
The judge then asked to review the original unedited surveillance files to clear up any questions. According to the courtroom exchange, the prosecution acknowledged that the raw footage had not been brought to the courthouse, leaving everyone waiting for the original recordings instead. Listen, this is a case where the state is seeking the death penalty against Tyler Robinson, who is 23 years old, so the stakes could not be higher. The entire preliminary hearing is focused on whether there is enough evidence for the case to move forward, and that's why every piece of evidence is being examined so closely. Critics questioned why the prosecution appeared in court without what they viewed as the primary original video evidence, especially in such a serious case. Some even joked that more effort seemed to go into editing the presentations than bringing the raw footage.
The first time you can clearly notice he has something in his hand, without a doubt, is when he's on the white triangular portion on the northeast corner of the Losi building preparing to jump. It is very apparent he has an item in his hand.
And that's based on your observation of the videos?
Correct.
Okay. And is it easier to see in that enhanced video?
The zoomed version of the video makes it a lot clearer to see, yes.
Okay.
That immediately raised another question people began asking. Was the video presentation handled appropriately, or did the editing create a misleading impression? One person watching even wrote, "What in the kangaroo court is this?" During the hearing, the defense attorney questioned the state's lead detective in a death penalty case, and many viewers felt the cross-examination put major pressure on his investigation. She kept pressing him about how his team handled the physical evidence in the days after the incident, raising one detailed question after another. What happened next surprised a lot of people watching. In some of the courtroom clips, critics say the detective looked completely caught off guard as the questions became more specific.
Objections to its admissibility. This is a compilation video that was put together from a bunch of different sources by the county attorney's office. This individual did not create this compilation, can't testify to the accuracy of the actual materials that it was taken from. And furthermore, Mr. Olson himself is just referred to by Agent Hall. He specifically says people have altered these.
Then the defense asked, hey, what ended up happening to the actual crime scene? And followed that up by asking how he first learned what had happened to it. His response on the stand immediately sparked criticism, with some viewers describing it as a troubling answer in such a high-stakes case. David Hall, the lead investigator with the UT State Bureau of Investigation, spent much of the day guiding the court through surveillance footage that prosecutors say tracks Tyler Robinson's movements on the day of the shooting. The video became a major focus of the hearing. David Hall wasn't testifying as a neutral outside expert. He's the lead investigator who helped build the state's case, so his role is to explain why investigators believe their theory matches the evidence. What stood out to me was his testimony that the surveillance footage showed Tyler Robinson, even though some of the video clips do not clearly show the person's face. Instead, he pointed to details like clothing, timing, movement, and other supporting factors to make that identification. That's my opinion and my interpretation of what was presented. The defense challenged that approach, arguing that Hall was asking the court to accept his conclusions instead of relying only on what the surveillance video clearly shows on its own. The defense also challenged the state's use of edited video compilations instead of simply presenting the original surveillance footage. Critics argued the clips were cut together more like a social media highlight reel than a complete presentation of the evidence. Another moment that caught my attention came during the cross-examination, when Hall acknowledged that he did not personally know certain details about what happened to the crime scene. The questions focused on what happened near the crime scene, and the defense used that testimony to argue, hey, you don't even know your own crime scene. Their position was that there were gaps in the investigation and unanswered questions about how certain evidence was handled or preserved. Those arguments became a major part of the cross-examination.
Recordings. They've zoomed in when the actual recording isn't zoomed. They've added little circles to people they wanted you to pay attention to. They've blurred people's faces out. So, I mean, it's been clearly altered. And it's not, I mean, they admit it's been altered. So we have real concern about authenticity of it. Furthermore, this particular video should be protected. And so that deals with the admissibility factor.
His estimation, or according to his testimony,
a lot of the criticism aimed at Hall seems to come from the fact that he's the public face of the state's investigation. And yes, plenty of viewers even joked about his unusual haircut. Beyond that, though, the defense argued that some of his conclusions reached further than what the evidence clearly supports on its own. This is only the preliminary hearing, yet the courtroom exchanges have already been intense, leaving critics questioning whether the prosecution brought its strongest presentation to court. Bro, that tiny figure running around in a black outfit could be me. It could be you. It could be almost anyone. From a distance, it's hard to make out clear identifying features, and that's exactly why the footage became such a big point of debate. One person on X wrote, his title lead investigator seems to be the only job he didn't do. This is only the preliminary trial, and it's already wild. Clearly, the state didn't think they would have to get to the point of presenting real evidence. That's one viewer's opinion, and it's clear the testimony sparked strong reactions. Here's a quick recap of Hall's testimony. Prosecutors presented surveillance video from around Utah Valley University that had not previously been shown in court. Hall testified that the footage showed what prosecutors allege were Tyler Robinson's movements, including multiple trips onto campus and approaches toward representatives from Turning Point USA. Hall also testified that the footage appeared to show what prosecutors allege were Tyler Robinson's movements, including leaving campus and later returning in different clothing.
These are all videos that are accurate and they depict what the raw footage depicts, other than those minor additions.
I'm sustaining the objection. Typically, when exhibits are admitted to the court, it is without alteration. If a party circles an exhibit, a photograph, That's not the original format, and I do not have the person who made the alteration, an 1102, to substantiate that.
Another clip has been getting a lot of attention. Hall described it as showing Tyler Robinson walking with one leg bent, and investigators testified that they believed this could be consistent with someone concealing a rifle. What do you think about that interpretation? He could just have an unusual walk. We really don't know for sure. It might not even be him in the footage, and that's exactly why those identifications are being debated. Anyway, the court was also shown footage that prosecutors allege depicts Tyler Robinson climbing onto the rooftop where they say the fatal shot was fired. Later, prosecutors pointed to footage they allege shows the same person climbing back down and leaving the area shortly after the shooting. Hall, the lead investigator, acknowledged that several of these video clips do not provide a clear view of the person's face. Hall explained that investigators identified the individual based on factors such as matching shoes, clothing, timing, the route taken across campus, and other evidence collected during the investigation. I've never worked on an investigation like this, so let me know what you think about that approach. Doesn't the evidence ultimately have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt before any final conclusions can be reached? Right? To me, that's why this has raised so many questions. Tyler Robinson's defense team challenged parts of Hall's testimony, arguing that some of the surveillance evidence depends on interpretation rather than showing a clear identification on its own. They argued that jurors should not simply accept investigators' conclusions about who appears in the footage without carefully weighing the evidence for themselves. The defense also objected to portions of the video evidence on evidentiary grounds. It's important to remember that this is a preliminary hearing, not the actual trial.
I want to go back, if I can, to the scene itself, the preservation of the actual scene where Mr. Kirk passed. Did you all have canine dogs at any point that sniffed that area?
I don't know specifically that area, but I do know that canines were present, or a canine was present on the day.
But you don't know what task the canine was given?
My understanding was that it may have been used in an effort to track an individual that had jumped off the roof, but I don't know for certain.
And obviously that didn't produce any results, or we would have heard about that, right?
Yeah, not that I was made aware of.
Okay.
At this stage, the judge's role is to decide whether prosecutors have presented enough evidence for the case to move forward to trial, not whether guilt has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Because the legal standard at this stage is relatively low, probable cause, many legal experts expect the case to move forward to trial. That's very different from proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, which comes later. As we get into these next clips, it's important to separate evidence that has been edited for presentation from claims that evidence was fabricated. Those are two very different issues. According to reporting, prosecutors presented synchronized video clips with labels, arrows, and edited compilations to explain their timeline of events. Critics compared the presentation to a highlight reel, while the defense argued that these edited versions could influence the judge and should not be accepted without a proper foundation. The more details that came out during the hearing, the more questions some observers began to raise. Okay, so the state had a duty to preserve the crime scene because this is a homicide case in which prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. With stakes this high, the handling of the scene became a major issue during the hearing. According to the defense, part of the area connected to the investigation was paved over before they had a full opportunity to examine it.
Do you know when the tent and the stuff was actually removed from the scene?
I don't. I would imagine it had been at least a couple of days, if not longer than that, before anything was removed from the scene.
You didn't have to give permission to remove the tent?
Me, personally?
Right.
No.
So you're not sure when it was removed?
No.
And were you involved in the decision to pave over the dirt that was under the tent?
At UVU?
Uh-huh.
No,
Did you know that happened?
only because it was in the news.
All right. But you don't know when or who ordered that?
Nope.
Once that happened, any physical evidence that might have been there could no longer be inspected. The defense argued that no one can now say with certainty what, if anything, was lost, whether it was footprints, possible trajectory evidence, marks on the pavement, or something else that could have helped their case. That's why they say preserving a crime scene is such a basic and important part of any major investigation. It's one of those things many people assume investigators are careful about from the very beginning. In a major criminal case, especially one involving a possible death penalty, people expect the scene to be preserved until it has been fully examined. That's why the claims about part of the area being altered have drawn so much attention. During cross-examination, the defense also focused on the lead investigator, David Hall, who acknowledged he could not explain certain details about how that happened, including who authorized it or why it occurred. The defense's argument was not that they could prove specific evidence had been destroyed. Instead, they argued that because the scene had been altered, no one can now know what evidence, if any, may have been lost. And they told the court that this uncertainty was not something they created. That was David Hall's testimony at that moment. He said, "I don't know. I don't know why the crime scene would have been paved over. I don't know what we would have paved over hypothetically if there was evidence there at the crime scene." That exchange immediately drew strong reactions because many people expected clearer answers in such a high-stakes case. The discussion then turned to another key point. Hall was asked, "How did you find out about it?" and answered, "The news." Critics questioned that response and argued the circumstances deserved a thorough, independent review. Public reporting has also noted that the sheriff connected to the call that led investigators to Tyler Robinson later resigned after being questioned about the matter, adding another point of controversy that has continued to attract attention. No matter how you look at it, this preliminary hearing has raised a lot of questions, and the trial is still far from over. As more evidence is presented, the court, not public opinion, will ultimately decide what weight each piece of evidence deserves. We'll be following every major development as this case moves forward. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who's following this case. I also want to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and let me know what stood out to you the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.